Welcome to the Art and Science of Complex Sales, sponsored by Membrane. This season, we're diving deep into the 3 T's of developing scalable sales organizations: talent, transformation, and technology. We're bringing together sales leaders from around the world to help you elevate your organizations and crush B2B revenue goals. So smash that like button, subscribe, and ensure you don't miss an episode. All right, I've got to confess, I'm a fan of today's guest. And if you're in the sales world, you're likely familiar with him as well. Keith Rosen. Keith isn't just any coach, he's the coach, at least the coach for a whole heck of a lot of people. He's authored 3 books that have defined what effective coaching looks like in sales, and his impact on the industry is absolutely undeniable. Here's the thing. His approach goes beyond hitting the numbers. He's about driving lasting change. He's about driving individual transformation and creating a culture where sales teams don't just survive, they thrive. So if you're looking to elevate your game, there's no better person to learn from. So without further ado, Keith Rosen, welcome to the show. Keith Rosen, this has been a long time coming. Welcome to the show, my man.
Hey, thanks for having me, Paul. It's certainly been a long time coming. Glad to be here with you.
Well, no, it's awesome. I'm really pumped, and especially it ties directly into this season that we're running. Like I told you, we're running the season around the 3 T's. We got talent, right? And then transformation of that talent. How do we arm them and guide them and help them grow to be top performers? And then technology. And we're going to focus directly in the core of your expertise, man, that transformation of salespeople into top performers. So this is going to be good. Let's do it. You're 35 years into this thing called Profit Builders, right?
You had to remind me it was 35 years. I appreciate that. It feels like just yesterday, as my mom would say. She's like, how did you do it? I'm like, Mom, let me tell you how I became an overnight success in 35 years.
One step at a time, Ma. One step at a time.
Yeah, it's been quite the journey. I can't even begin to articulate how grateful I am for the opportunity to travel to 76 countries and 6 continents and work with, hundreds of thousands of salespeople and managers on helping them grow and achieve their potential and helping managers pull out the potential of their people. It's truly been an absolute gift. I don't know how many opportunities people would have in our state of the world to be able to go and do travel like that. So it was truly a blessing. And when I do travel, I'm not one of those people that, okay, I'm delivering a seminar on Tuesday. I'll show up on Monday and then leave Tuesday night. I'm not going across the world for that. If I'm going across the world, I'm spending my time doing my delivery of training or coaching, but I'm spending at least a week really honoring my core values of connection, people, love, adventure, creativity, religion from a place of just wanting to learn. To me, it's that connection. How do you connect with people? Is understanding who they are from a place of their beliefs. Culture. Oh my gosh. Culture is just such a passion of mine. To be able to go to some of these places like Egypt and see artifacts that are literally 4,000 to 5,000 years old. I mean, that just blows my mind. And, actually, I think sales hasn't changed in about 4,000 to 5,000 years. Also, probably have a lot to talk about there.
I love it. I love it. Well, hey, I was going to go a completely different direction, but I got to dive in here a little bit. There's a foreword in your book that you write when we're getting started about that guiding light, about those principles. And you talk about your family, you talk about your wife, you talk about how they putting up with you in terms of the writing of this book. And let's dive there a little bit into that core, because I think that'll anchor us in terms of the rest of the journey here. How you can actually become a coach and how you can actually provide value as a coach. So do you mind diving there? How did you formulate your core principles and values around this thing that you do called sales coaching?
I love where you're coming from on this because everyone knows the vernacular training. And when I'm working with sales leaders and sales teams, it's not really training, whether I'm coaching them or delivering my sales leadership coach training program or sales program. It's a transformation. Change, if you actually look it up, means just literally changing what you're doing. Transformation is not only changing what you do, but how you think, your attitude, your belief system, how you show up. And when we focus more on transformation, you're taking a holistic approach to people's professional and personal development. And that's how you become a champion. That's how you become a winner. Just look at, we just had the Olympics. You think they were only going to be coached on what they need to do? No, they're being coached heavily on mindset and being present and being able to screen out, just like any professional athlete, screen out all that noise that's going around them so they can be present and focused on the moment. Those are the things that need to happen. So when we talk about core values, you can't be a great leader. You can't be a great coach if your core value is being selfish and focused on you. Having core values as a leader and as a coach means, to me, and adding some more of what mine are, is selflessness, wanting to make an impact, wanting to contribute to other people's success, being present, being not just curious, insatiably curious. Try to say that 10 times fast. Be someone who is creating new possibilities, not driving your agenda. Be open to other people's ideas and the fact that you actually hired people to do their job. You didn't hire them so that you can take on their responsibilities. You hired them so that you can scale and grow the future bench of leaders. These are all mindsets. These are all the core values that I see the greatest leaders have, let alone passion, let alone a growth mindset, lifelong learning, extreme self-care. Okay. It's not just about taking care of your mind and your spirit, but also, physically, and being able to take care of yourself in every area of your life. Because to me, the best leaders, the best coaches are modeling what's possible for other people to achieve. And it starts with how you think, because beliefs will always precede experience.
I have a good friend, and he actually spent some time coaching me as well. But he tied these two things together when he said a lot of times when you're a coach that people need to see who they can be in you. And the only way to do that is to actually decide upon the values that you choose to have and then follow them.
Yeah,
right? It gives you peace and everything else in decision making. And that's one of the hardest things. That is the hardest thing to do, I would say.
I find that what makes it even more challenging for so many of the coaches out there, whether they have a practice, an external practice, or even a practice internally, which is your team, is being able to detach from that outcome of their agenda and focus on their clients or their teams. Because at the end of each day, you have to look in the mirror and say, what impact did I make on my customers today? What impact did I make on my team, on my coworkers, on, people in a cross-functional department? To me, it's not about what did I just achieve today? What boxes can I check off? If you're really honoring your core values, that's how you're showing up every single day.
There's a ton to that. But in terms of documenting those core values, and how do you do that internally, just yourself? Like, how do you get those down? How do you understand them, reflect on them, think about them, so you can then come from a place of stability instead of always going to the next best thing?
There is actually an assessment that I created which lists about maybe 100 different core values. And core values are not right or wrong. And just to make sure we're even the playing field here, a core value is who you are when you are fully self-expressed and living in your integrity. So, for example, if one of my core values is family and making an impact and connection, if I'm not honoring the relationships I have with my children, my wife, my clients to make that impact, I'm going to feel off. And it's the only way I could say it is when people wake up in the morning and they're, I don't know if I'm going to have a good day. Something is pulling at me. Something is, something's, grabbing me inside. I can't put my finger on it. I just feel off. Let me give your audience a gauge that they could use to pinpoint why they feel off. If you feel off, if you feel like for some reason you're not being your true self, look at your core values and ask yourself, which of the values are the ones that I'm honoring and which are the ones that I'm not? And now it becomes a self-assessment, where, oh, wow, I could see based on the last week or so, I've been immersed in, doing some, working on another project. I really haven't had an opportunity to work with my clients or, to coach. I'm going to feel off. But yet once I'm re-engaged in that, I'm now back in my integrity. And again, my definition of integrity could be honesty. That could be a core value, but it's what you do to make yourself whole and complete. So if you're living your values, you're in a state of your integrity.
So one of the books that you wrote, for me, ties the most directly to that. And I want to see if it does for you. But you wrote this book, and I don't know why you wrote it, the Own Your Day.
Okay.
Right. And that to me ties directly to that more than, because it's when I think about it, when I read it, I was thinking the whole time, this is all about connecting my purpose to what I want to do and then how I impact others. Right. And so that self leadership and that self accountability to my core values and the expressed as how I use my time is something that I don't think enough coaches and leaders pay attention to, because there's always so much else going out. But you've been in this business and working that every day. How often does that occur? Like you find someone great leadership skills and capabilities and that type of stuff, but they're just pulled so many different ways. They don't own their own values and own what is the right thing to them.
Well, I'll say it a different way. I'm having a hard time coming up with someone who doesn't struggle with that. Time management, I mean, let's face it, it's not the sexiest subject. And when I'm working with, doesn't matter whether it's a small organization or a global organization, sure, they'll say, oh yeah, Keith, we offer sales training. Oh yeah, Keith, we offer management training. The two things that companies fail to offer the most is leadership coach training. So they're transforming their dependent chief problem solving managers into coaches that are making their people more valuable every single day. And the other subject is time management. I don't like to use the words always or never, but I have never had an organization come to me and say, oh yeah, we have a whole self-management program that we put our people through so they can really organize their day and make sure they're engaging in the activities that not only are going to move them towards their goals, not only are going to keep them in their integrity so they can honor their values, but also keep their life in harmony and at peace. Not many people have that. And that to me speaks to the three pillars of self-management. Let's face it, you can't manage your time. Time management, it's an oxymoron. What you can manage is yourself. So we're really looking at self-management, and always ask any client, send me a screenshot of your calendar, of your week. And inevitably what would be in there, meeting, maybe an event. And I would see all this white space in their calendar. And I would say, wow, you have a lot of free time. And they'd say, Keith, are you crazy? To your point, Paul, I'm being pulled in a million different directions. I get internal meetings. I have external meetings. I have meetings with my team, meeting with my customers, constantly putting fires out. I have to hire a new team. I have to get used to engaging my hybrid team. All these things being, I forget about my forecasting. All these things that are being pulled by managers, it becomes very difficult for them to honor a routine, especially if they've never created it. So coach managers on creating, listen, walk with me through all the activities you engage in every day. Now let's take those activities and be realistic with how much time they have. Now let's take those activities and look at the activities that either you shouldn't be engaging in or you should be delegating out. Once we are at that point, we now start filling in the gaps. We start filling in those time blocks, if you will, of those activities that are going to honor their business goals and sales objectives while honoring their priorities and values. And it's a balance of the two. But I have a saying, if you don't have the appointment, you don't have the commitment. So when managers and salespeople are coming to me and saying, well, Keith, I'm struggling with taking care of myself and exercising and, or, honoring, the activities that I want to, or spending more time with my family, the first thing I ask them is, do you have it scheduled? And inevitably the answer is no. So, we talk about accountability. One of the ways to create self-accountability is by creating a routine and empowering your routine, giving power to your routine to hold yourself accountable. Now, unfortunately, that can only go so far, because if we're our own boss, it's really easy to look at something and say, oh, prospecting at 9:00. You know what? I got a few other important things to do. I'll do it a little later. And then a little later becomes tomorrow and the next day and the next day. So if we're truly not empowering our routine, then we need to use other vehicles to create personal accountability. Find your coach, get a peer coach, ask your manager. These are just a few things to help hold you accountable to the things that you want to create in your life anyway. But sometimes we need that additional personal assistance with having someone in our corner to keep us, in our lane towards our shared vision.
You said something there that most salespeople I have ever talked to would actually be scared of doing, which is, and I think it's because of a systematic issue in how we think of managers. But you said, ask your manager. Ask your manager to hold you accountable. Ask your manager to help you stay on. I mean, those are some things that, that would be such a gift for most salespeople to come in and actually do and execute upon, and be confident in their own ability enough to say, okay, I can create a schedule that'll help me get to my goals. I'm going to ask my manager to help me with that. Why do you think that? I have my ideas on why I think that's kind of a systematic. There's an issue that we have that people just don't do that. But why do you think that is?
Great coaching question, by the way, Paul. I love how you position that. So hopefully everyone that is listening actually caught that great question, which was, hey, I have my opinion. However, I'd like to hear yours first. That's, to me, you could do that all day, managers. You could do that all day long, shoving your opinion down everyone's throat and actually listen to what they have to say. Sorry about the side rant there, Paul.
Oh, it's great, Rick. It's fine. Wherever you want to go.
But back to your point, looking at self accountability, I think there's two factors at work. People need to realize your personal growth and professional growth is not the responsibility of your manager or of your company. It is your responsibility. You have to take ownership of that. You can't sit and wait for the company to hire you an internal coach, or for your manager to come to you and say, hey, listen, let's talk about how I can best support you. You might be waiting your entire career. Therefore, we need to take an intentional, proactive stance to seek out the support we need. So where this is going is to coaching up. How do we coach up to our managers to get what we need and how we want to be held accountable in this example? And to your point, I think a lot of people have a visceral reaction of, Keith, are you suggesting I go to my manager and ask them to hold me accountable? I don't want them to micromanage me. That's their first reaction. No, accountability is not synonymous with micromanagement. Accountability is holding yourself true to your values, to your goals, to your integrity. So coaching up to your manager, is more about saying, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Manager, what I want for the team and for you is for me to be a top performer that's certainly supporting not only my goals and achieving my goals, but your goals and the organizational goals as well. And I know how I like to be held accountable, and I know everyone likes to be held accountable in a different way, which could make your job a lot more difficult to try to figure that out. So I was hoping we can have a conversation about how my prior managers have held me accountable in a way that felt supportive and empowering while still keeping me true to my word and to my commitments. And I'd love to talk to you about how that worked for me and what that sounds like so that you're always getting the best from me. Are you open to talking?
As you're saying this, it brings to mind, like, it's we've known for years and years and years that there's this thing called codependency in psychology. That's a horrible thing. It's that codependent relationship is not a good thing to align with something else to provide you your identity and your value, and then you need to take that from them. And then we talk about, Covey did this codependence, then he did independence, right? Which is, okay, I need to know enough about myself that I can stand up and I can say, great, I know what I need to do. I know how I need to do it. Let's go execute. But what you're talking about, which is so wonderful, is the interdependent person, right? Is that I know what I need to do for myself. I know that I can define these core values. I can bring that to the team. For the most part, the employee-employer relationship, especially in sales that I've seen over my lifetime, is that codependent relationship. It's you have to do this for me to give you any value. You have to hit this number for me to like you. You have to do that, And then instead of that interdependent relationship where it's like, let's find this path to crack this nut together. Why do we just go down to that because it's the easiest common denominator? I mean, it's the easiest thing to do is to put up a scorecard and say, you're only as good as your numbers? Or why has that happened in sales?
I think there's part of it that companies will just say, well, that's just how it's always been. And that's just how we do it, which then companies wonder why they're mired in mediocrity and not changing. I just want to take a sidestep here, just to your point, because you said something that I don't want to step over, is when we're talking about core values, one of the reasons why I implore people to articulate them and identify them is because if they're not, they're defining themselves often by their position or their career. And unfortunately, what happens if your position or career, is no longer there? What happens if your position and career was taken away? What happens if you became redundant? Now you're not in that position. You're not on that career path. Then who are you? What you do is what you do. Okay. That's your job. Who are you is how you show up every day. And that can never be robbed from you. So I want to go back now to your point about the codependence part, man. And this also bleeds back to values. Is one of the core values for every leader has to be unconditional support, not conditional support. Now, hey, as long as you're hitting your number, I like you and I'll support you. But if you're not, HR, I have someone that might need to be put on a performance improvement plan. Okay. That's not going to create the legacy any manager wants, let alone a culture of productivity, of passion, of fun. That's going to create a culture of fear because managers look and say, well, I don't know what else to do. So I guess I'll go the compliant path and ask HR, which unfortunately, if it's an institutionalized turnaround program, all it does is instill more fear. And now people are motivated by fear to avoid a consequence rather than being pulled by pleasure, their vision, their values, and the goals that support them. So it's something where we almost, again, while I say we're responsible for our own professional development, I think it's a blind spot for managers that they don't even know what they don't even know. And for so long, as you and I were saying, well, this is how it is and this is how we've done it. And the worst, of course, is, well, we're still getting results. So why should we change? Well, at what cost? What opportunities are you missing? And the part that can really makes a difference is when managers take the time to understand, number one, what is the most powerful technology I have at my disposal to make my people more valuable, successful? That's coaching. And managers are so wired, and you alluded to this before about there are so many things coming at them, and so many things are pulling for their attention that when someone comes to them, specifically one of their directs, and asks for help, the visceral reaction, and again, this talks about transforming your mindset, is, well, I don't have a lot of time. I've been in this position before, so let me just tell this person what they need to do. And we do that, and we think we're helping them, because every manager I've met, pretty much 99% of the managers I've known over the years of me working with them, have come from a good place. They truly want to help. But unfortunately, there's a paradox. And managers create the problems they want to avoid. Because every single time I'm sitting there and I'm giving an answer to one person, and I have 5 people on my team and 10 or 20, or then I get promoted and I have 50 people. You can't have 50 people around, your desk waiting for you to help them and solve their problems, because you can't scale dependency. You can't scale that. What you can scale is self-accountability. What you can scale is that when you're coaching someone, you can help them create a growth and learning mindset. When you're coaching someone, you're challenging them on the fact that, hey, I know you have an opinion. I know you have some ideas. Help me understand what your line of thinking is. Everyone has an idea and everyone has an opinion. Managers are not taking the time to seek to understand what it is, because they're making the assumption that, hey, you know what? It's a lot quicker if I just give this person the answer because I know it'll work. Well, it may work for you, and it doesn't mean it's going to work for them. And what we're now creating is a fixed mindset, because that salesperson is thinking, well, every time I have a problem, I'll just go to my manager and they'll fix it for me.
Do you mind if I dive into that concept then of leverage and growth, and really growth management with you here?
Please.
Because that's a massive thing. And I'm going to give a very specific example, and I'm hoping you could speak into this. So looking at a company, say, and I've been in a number of growth companies, and one of the things that I find is that that transition from owner-led, high growth, owner-led early on, to leveraged growth in the future. Right? I found that transition, that's a very difficult transition to make. And I find it generally because that you have a small group of very great, dynamic people that have lived the journey, right? And then you're asking them to do something completely different. You're asking them to do something like building people, and you're asking them to coach and dive in. So how do you start to create that growth leverage within that great? Because they obviously, that C-suite is obviously very good at what they do and what they've done. But how do you dive in there and take that mentality to one of, okay, leverage, coaching, building others, service, leadership? You get where I'm coming from?
Oh, wholeheartedly. As we know, avalanches roll downhill. Culture starts from the top. And I find that as you go up that proverbial corporate ladder, you get more disconnected from the field and more obsessed with the metrics and the results and the revenue targets. And we start inadvertently looking at people as a number. And that line of thinking, again, the coach's mentality, takes away from every leader's core and primary objective, which is to make your people more valuable every day. It's not to call up and say, okay, we need to have a pipeline review. Where are you with your scorecard? Where are you with your commitments? Where is your team at in terms of hitting their quota? Is their pipeline accurate? Is their forecast accurate? While important, they're all focused on the results. And to make this change, to make this transformation, for people to accept change, especially even whether it's a startup or even if it's a tenured company, and they don't have a coaching culture, they have a result-driven culture, which is 99% of every company out there, because we have results to hit. It requires a shift in how they're thinking, going back to that transformational part. However, it also requires a shift in how they're communicating with their team. And when I work with managers, I'll always share, listen, your job is challenging enough. My job is to make your life easier. And when managers are instituting or trying to institute any change, typically it sounds like, hey, listen, we've been doing it this way for this long. We're now at a different phase in the path of our trajectory of the growth of our company. We need to start doing things differently, whether that's hiring people, whether it's learning how to manage a team, whether it's adopting a new team. All these things are changes. And when you're dealing with change and trying to create buy-in and alignment with that change and get people to want to agree with you and follow you, telling them what to do is certainly not going to be enough, because everyone is tuned into WIIFM, just like our customers are. What's in it for me? So while managers can play the power card and say, well, we're rolling out the CRM and the rep says, well, why? My tracking system, the way I track my clients, the way I track my prospects, it's been working for me. Well, why are we changing? And the manager says, well, because I was told that's what we're doing and we're rolling it out, so we have to use it. And then companies wonder why, there's maybe a 50% adoption of CRM. It's a very simple reason. It has nothing to do with the training or the videos you're showing them to help them on board on how to use this platform. It's about making sure you're connecting. Here's what we're doing with here's why we're doing it. And most importantly, here's what's in it for you. So when I can connect the dots on the example where, hey, this is what we're doing. We're rolling out a new CRM. Here's why we're doing it and what's in it for you. Now you're creating alignment between business objective and each person's personal goals. When you have that shared alignment and objectives, now people are thinking, I get it. If I do this, if I change this, if I improve this skill, I'm going to be able to get my new car, put a down payment on a new house, get that promotion, build my personal brand, have my money in my portfolio so I can focus on retirement, save for my children's education, put aside money to take that family vacation. Whatever it is that matters most to you, we're now connecting your priorities with what needs to happen at work. When you do that, then you create the buy-in and eliminate the resistance of change.
And you've been going at this for a while. Do you have any favorite stories of transformations? Like, do you have any that are just like, I'm sure you have so many, but I always love hearing the success stories of people that have been truly investing in. They've been invested in, they turn around, they change their mindset. Any of those that just pop out to you?
How much time do we have?
I know we can cut into 2 different episodes, but
I'll share one very common story that I see throughout my career. And a manager would hire me and they'd say, Keith, my team, I don't know if I have the right team. I don't know if we have the right processes. They're struggling hitting their numbers. And I'll start working with this manager and exploring, okay, well, you're saying you have potentially the wrong team and they're not hitting their numbers. Tell me what you've done. Help turn around your people. Tell me what you've done in terms of how you support them and help them show up to be the best version of them every single day. And for the most part, they really don't have an answer. For the most part, it's, well, I'll stand on my soapbox and I'll tell them what they need to do and why it's so important. Well, no. Managers, you need to smash your soapbox, because preaching to your people just turns their listening off. People resist what they hear, but believe what they say. So by transforming our conversations from solution-oriented conversations to question-oriented conversations, we're seeking to pull out each person's motivators, individual motivators. What are the things that they need personally to succeed? And when managers have this conversation, it changes the landscape of how they interact with each person, because most of the time, managers will manage the way they manage. And this is probably one of the most toxic traps of leadership and coaching, which is don't manage or coach in your own image. Well, I know what works for me, Paul, I know what motivates me. I know how I like to be held accountable. I know how I like to be communicated to. I know how I like to build relationships. So I guess it's the same for my team. And we're making gross assumption. And now we start building mini me's and robots and wonder why we're not tapping into each person's fullest potential. And the more we push our agenda, the more people resist. And while there are some people out there that say, oh, this is great, my manager does my job for me, there are also other people that are leaving a conversation with their manager thinking, my manager didn't even ask me any questions about what I've tried or how I've tried it or the results that I need to achieve or why it's important to me or what's the implication if I don't achieve that or what's the implication if I do achieve that. My manager's not asking me any of those questions. They're just basically telling me what to do. And I guess they don't trust me. I guess they don't have faith in me. I guess they don't, believe I can do my job. And what do you think that's going to do to the relationship that manager has with that person, let alone that person's confidence?
I was doing some self-reflection while you were talking, and it's really interesting. Do you start to hear those things, and then the self-assessment, right? If you dive in, you're like, man, I need to be doing this. I have to say that one asset of yours has been the most helpful for me over time. You have these, I've read your 3 books, but this latest one that you just, this ebook, and I think it's the latest one, but it's the 7 types of coaching questions. Very simple, easy to read, dive in. It's helped me shape how I interact with people very simply and easily. And I can't recommend that enough. So it's on your website, right? If I tell people to go there,
it's free.
It's completely free.
Anyone want to go?
Yeah,
download it.
Yeah, but that really is what you just said there. And I'm going to ask you to say the exact words again, if you don't mind.
Of course.
It was people listen to people reject what they hear and listen to what they speak. Is that was it?
Yeah, and I'll just say it in a different way. People resist what they hear.
Okay.
But believe what they say. So I can tell a rep what they need to do, and they'll resist it because it's not their idea and it may not even fit for them. However, if I ask, hey, listen, you're closer to this than I am, and I trust you and I trust your judgment. So what's your opinion? Well, what they say, they're going to believe. And what they believe, they're going to own. And what they're going to own, they're going to act on. And the end result is greater results. And you've just built in self-accountability. So let's now bring this back to your other question regarding helping take a manager who's blaming their team and blaming the marketplace and blaming how their product is positioned or their service is positioned. Again, inevitably, I would pull out from this manager that they see that they're really not spending the time with their people enough, and the conversations they're having really aren't very fruitful or valuable. It seems that they're pretty redundant. So after working with countless managers, I would work with them. Hey, let's work on your coaching skills. Again, to simplify coaching, it's the art and language of creating new possibility. That is the definition of coaching. Leadership and sales is a language. The language is coaching. So trying to make the concept of coaching easier, it's really helping managers change the way they engage and communicate. So when they're doing that now, all of a sudden, this manager, after could be a week, could be a month, could be 2 months, call me up and say, Keith, I've been focusing more on asking questions and enrolling people, like we talked about before, setting positive intent so people can see what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And production has gone up. The attrition of good performers is down. I'm retaining more customers. We're acquiring more customers. The weirdest thing, Keith, I got like 25 more hours back in my day because my people are doing their job. Well, wait a second, Mr. or Mrs. Manager. Weren't you the manager that hired me a couple of months ago and told me that it's your team's fault? And now what I'm hearing you say is it's your fault. And I'm not saying it in a way to make them wrong. I'm saying it in a way to empower them. Because if it's the manager's fault and they take full 100, not 70, not 80, not 90, not 95, 100% giving the success of their team to their team, acknowledging that, and taking 100% responsibility for their failures, now it's in their power to change. That's why that's good news. And managers can always hit a reset button on how they lead, on the conversations they have, and on the relationships they foster.
Man, you almost got me into a religious state there. When I started thinking of the concept of grace, and because I am fascinated by that as well. But the concept of grace is you can always change. You always can, and you can always own that, and you can always own the fact that you've not been the best, but you can change that you will. Great stuff. Absolutely love your work and love the chance to talk with you, from music to the coaching. I'm going to ask if you'll come back on, because there's a lot of other topics that I want to dive into with you, and we don't have the time to do it in one episode. Do you open to that?
Well, the fact that you're putting me on the spot, Paul, right now in front of the audience, I'm going to have to say absolutely. Let's go ahead and get that on the calendar.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I learned something from sales, Clearly. Well, no, I love having you, and we can make it in 6 months, a year, but the sooner the better, man. There's a lot of things, and the one thing, let's leave people with a cliffhanger here, because here's the cliffhanger. I know a lot of executives, and I know a lot of executives think, oh my gosh, that seems really, really expensive. I don't know how to invest in my team that way to actualize it and make it happen. So I'm not going to ask you to answer it. I don't even want to go there, but that is the question that's going to be on my mind and the listener's mind till the next time we get together.
So can I throw in like one little teaser on that?
Yeah, tease away.
Little teaser. Here we go. You ready? Managers, if you're not coaching your people aren't selling.
Mic dropped, and thank you. Thank you very much. And with that, we'll close out for today. How do people get a hold of you, Keith, if they want to get a hold of you?
Well, I honoring my core values of unconditional support, I'd like to give everyone my personal information. My email is very simple, kr@keithrosen.com. To your point before, I have my new ebooks out, free downloads on my website, keithrosen.com. Certainly reach out and connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always posting new content there. And my mobile number is 516-374-3774. And some people might be saying, Keith, why are you giving us your mobile number? Well, that's called unconditional support. So I'm here if you need me, because everyone does better when they have someone in their corner supporting.
Rock and roll. That's what I call shining bright. If you've ever listened to the program before, that's what it means. That's why we're here. We're meant to shine bright. We're meant to elevate the sales profession. We're meant to get out and help each other, lift each other up, and learn new stuff. So, Keith, you've just given a masterclass today. You've committed to coming back. I'm super excited about that. And then everybody out there, please reach out, connect, make sure you're connecting, following Keith stuff on LinkedIn. Make sure you're liking the podcast, following the podcast. And with that, I will just say shine bright, have an amazing day, and thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Art and Science of Complex Sales. Please take a moment, like, subscribe, share this podcast on all your favorite platforms, and let's get the word out. This podcast is proud to be brought to you by Membrane.com. We are the world's top B2B sales platform. And in the world of B2B sales, with everything from prospecting to business acquisition to managing complex growth, Membrane has the right size technology for your sales team. Our latest innovation, the Coaching Cockpit, empowers your leaders, managers, and team with the information and tools they need to take their skills to the next level and to take advantage of the exponential power of effective sales coaching. With our technology and the top team of sales partners around the world, Membrane is helping to achieve our driving vision. This is, quite simply, elevating the sales profession. To learn more, find us at www.membrane.com. That is membrain.com, or contact us via email at sales@membrane.com. Keep shining bright and have a wonderful day.